At this time, I'd like to call to order Tuesday, April 21st, 2020 meeting of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners. At this time, I'd ask you all to please bow your heads and join us in prayer for the citizens of our country, our state, and our county as we deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and ask for wisdom for all of our leadership. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Whoa!
It's downstairs.
Yes.
Yes, it's downstairs where
We'll pledge the flag later.
Use lapel, but
There we go.
Looks like we're pledging to Gene. Yeah, there you go. All right.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In the Army, we would call that a field expedient flag.
that's right.
Somebody on the call-in probably ought to mute.
Yeah. No.
Okay. All right, we're good.
All right. At this time, Ms. Jones, would you please review the adjustments to the agenda?
I'm not aware of any adjustments to the agenda unless the board has any.
I believe I will have two items under new business. Any additional adjustments? Is there a motion to approve the agenda as adjusted?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Howe. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those like sign? Okay. I would like to announce for the record that we are meeting with a full quorum of 5. Commissioners Norman and Vice Chairman Bowles are appearing telephonically. Correct?
Marvin and Tommy, you here?
Yes, Tommy's here. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can everybody hear what's going on?
Yes.
Okay, great. We're also observing the governor's limitation on numbers of people in any gathering place, which is limited to 10 pursuant to Executive Order 121, signed on March 27th and effective on March the 30th. And so when we conduct a public hearing, we will do so and escort only the maximum number of folks into the chamber, as will maintain the 10 present, and the sheriff, deputy sheriff, will control that ingress and egress. Likewise, we will have a telephone number that people can call into. And could you share that number?
Sure,
704
878
878
3051.
3051.
Operators standing by.
Have your credit card handy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But wait, there's more.
I know what you'll be able to do. Okay. There are no presentations of any special recognitions or awards this evening, and we have no appointments before the board. I would like to just, prior to getting started, I would like to give a shout out to all of our first responders and our healthcare workers, our nursing facility caregivers, our Department of Social Services, all of those folks out there that are interacting with people in need, regardless of the conditions, and they do so in service to the county and the greater good, and we thank them and salute them. We have one public hearing for economic development incentive for project coupling. This matter's been on, I think, 3 times and been continued each time because of the situation. This involves a company that is headquartered in Italy, and they have been wanting to participate, but because of the pandemic and the travel restrictions, have not been able to bring that to fruition. So we have continued it as many times as we can. We're at that point where we can't continue it unless we choose to deny the economic incentive, which would mean that they would be delayed in returning to us. So we will go ahead and advertise this matter for public hearing at such time as they're able to participate. So procedurally, I will go ahead and open the public hearing and then close the public hearing unless there's someone that'd like to be heard. So I will now open the public hearing for the economic development incentive for project coupling. I would inquire if there's anyone that would like to be heard. And we will wait about 30 seconds to see if anyone dials in. And what's the game show music that usually plays? Okay.
Jeopardy. Is it Jeopardy? So they're waiting for the final Jeopardy. So we're not going to make it a precondition that they have to make their comments in the form of a question.
No. Or in Italian. Okay, that time is up. Hearing and seeing no one that would like to be heard, I will close this public hearing, and the next time it can come before us will be after a duly noticed public hearing at another date. Move on to item 8, which is administrative matters. We normally have a pre-agenda meeting where we dispose of these rather technical issues, but given the fact that we don't want to inconvenience or have more staff present than needs to be, our county manager has agreed to carry the full weight of summarizing all of these items, and if there is a question that goes beyond her general remit and knowledge down really far into the weeds, because she does have pretty good knowledge about what's going on even into the weeds, but if it's really down in the dirt, then she may ask for someone to come online and answer any of those questions.
That is the point that I will phone a friend.
Pardon?
I will phone a friend at that point.
Okay. Okay.
Is that your final?
Then I'll turn it over to you for your summary, and this will be for our consent agenda.
Thank you, Chairman Mallory. The first item is a request from Iredell-Statesville Schools for approval of a utility easement at Cloverleaf Elementary School related to the I-77 construction project. In your packet is a letter from Iredell-Statesville Schools. Also in there is the deed for right-of-way from North Carolina Department of Transportation, a release, a vendor registration form and release, and then a map indicating the property that we're referring to. The Iredell-Statesville Schools was first approached by the Department of Transportation. They needed an easement at Cloverleaf Elementary related to the I-77 construction project, and their initial offer was $26,800 to the Board of Education. The Board of Education, after negotiations, were able to successfully increase the offer to $40,000. So the Board of Education has agreed to that amount and are making that recommendation back to the Board of County Commissioners. Since the property is in the name of the County Commissioners, because there is still a debt that's owed on that property, it has to be approved by the Commissioners. So they are recommending approval to the Board of County Commissioners for the settlement offer by the Department of Transportation for this easement, and they're requesting for the funds to be deposited in an account for future school-related land purchases.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Commissioner Norman and Commissioner Bowles, were you able to hear everything that was said?
Tommy and Marvin, did y'all hear what Manager Jones said?
Heard everything she said.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. We have a consent. Consent?
Consent.
Thank you. The next item is a request from Emergency Medical Services for approval of Budget Amendment Number 27 to appropriate CARES Act provider relief funding. And the amount is different. We actually got notification that it's more than what we were initially notified to be. The amount is actually $176,790. This is money that is going to our EMS department as a result of COVID-19, and they are wanting to receive these funds and then in turn expend these funds for medical supplies to protect the public and the paramedics in providing care to as a result of COVID-19.
So is this to replenish some of the stocks that they dipped into that we had on hand from the Ebola?
Yes, and to purchase additional PPE. The PPE is critical in their delivery of services. Anytime there is a patient or a call to 911 and it is suspected that it is relative to COVID-19, only our EMS go. No first responders are sent to those. So only our EMS staff go to those calls, and it is necessary that they use the appropriate PPE, and this will help replenish some of those supplies.
That seems like, excuse me, a big number. I assume that they expect for this to last the year.
Everything that we are hearing is that we will be dealing with COVID-19 until a vaccine is created and is administered. So they are preparing for the long haul. And from what I understand from the White House conference calls and the state conference calls, is that this is something we're going to be dealing with a new norm for quite a while. So there may be additional rounds of funding that will be coming down, but this is the initial round. And we actually have 3 departments that, and possibly 4, that are receiving some funding. There are 3 on this agenda tonight.
So they make this distribution based on population assessment or a specific requests needs that were identified?
Really good question. Hold on, I have the whole thing in my little packet. I do know that they have to apply for the funding, but I do not have the details of how the funding is distributed, but I do know that each agency has to apply with what they are requesting and how they intend on using the funds, but I don't have what criteria the state or federal government uses in dispersing those funds.
Do you happen to know at what level of government this was approved? Was it at the federal level or a state level?
This is through the Instant CARES Act, right? Correct. This is through the CARES Act. So this is federal funding that's going to each state, and then the state distributes that out through the CARES Act.
If I can state the obvious, I mean, I know that you know this, but I think for people who are just listening in, I mean, that's not $176,000 that we can, renovate a kitchen, okay? This is money that I would not be surprised if, despite what you think that more may be coming, this might be it. And so when we talk about replenishing supplies, just like I said during our last meeting, which we still don't know, because I've heard conflicting reports. I've heard that the virus does not do well in hot weather, and I've heard that it does better than the regular flu in hot weather. So I don't know. But we've got basically until next October to get ready for round 2. And I don't have I've not heard where anybody thought that there would be an approved vaccine before October. So if that's the case, then this gives us 6 months to hopefully buy protective equipment and stuff from American manufacturers. I would hate for us to use that and go buy it from a bunch of Chinese folks. Let's buy it from some people in America so that if we need to reorder it, we can. But that's what the money is for, and that doesn't mean that it's freed up a bunch of money for us to do other things with. So. And those same comments would be true for the additional grants that are going to be discussed.
Anyone else? Well, I'll just say this. This is about as quick a disbursement of any kind of funding from the federal level as I've ever seen.
Yes.
So we have to give credit where credit is due, and thank our congressmen, senators, and the administration for quickly getting these funds out, because everyone's running short, and the only thing that gets you the supplies is the scratch.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Agreed.
we appreciate that. So consent?
Yes, sir.
Consent, Mr. Bowles and Mr. Norman.
Okay.
Marvin, you good with consent?
Yep.
Okay.
Consent.
Great, thank you. The next item is a request from the Health Department for approval of Budget Amendment Number 28 in the amount of $133,835 for COVID-19 crisis response funding. Again, this is one of the departments that received those fundings. The Health Department is proposing to use these funds in a little bit of a different way, in the fact that they are recognizing that our older adults and people that have serious underlying medical conditions are at a higher risk. And the fact that we have 5 long-term care facilities, 12 assisted living facilities, and a hospice facility, all in Iredell County, and there is 1,100 residents in those facilities and an additional 1,200 employees in all of those facilities. So they are proposing to use these funds to assist with testing in those long-term care facilities. So testing would be up to $75 for a test, and this would only be funds that would be used for those testing if they have exhausted every other resource or avenue to pay for those tests, i.e. insurance, things of that nature. So they would like to use this funding to increase the testing, and specifically increase testing to those more vulnerable populations. So that is what they're proposing. Once they have used those revenues to do those testing and have that available and get some additional tests available, if there are any residual resources and revenue, they'd like to use that for PPE as well. Again, masks, gloves, gowns, things of that nature.
Consent.
Okay. Consent?
Mr. Bowles and Mr. Norman, consent on that one. Consent, Mr. Norman? Consent. Thank you.
All consent?
Yep.
Consent.
And the next item is a request from the Sheriff's Office for approval to apply and accept the Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program for fiscal year 2020 from the U.S. Department of Justice in the amount of $54,119. Again, this is money that is coming to those responder agencies as a result of COVID-19. The Sheriff's Office, they would like to use this funding to put additional measures and equipment in place to ensure that we try to keep COVID-19 out of our jail, our detention center. So they are proposing to purchase equipment. It is an infrared camera and thermometer, which is touch-free, that anybody that comes in the front door, it will take temperatures and it will monitor that and let them know immediately if anybody has an elevated temperature. That is a additional facility that we want to make sure that we keep as protected as possible. So they're proposing to use this funding to purchase those cameras and infrared thermometer system.
Okay. Any additional questions? Consent?
Yes.
Commissioners Bowles and Norman, consent. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to commend our departments for their focused, on-point use of these funds that will be focused on the vulnerable populations and our vulnerable first responders. You see some of the numbers in other counties similar to ours that are double or almost triple our numbers of confirmed cases, and in almost every one of those cases, it's a significant outbreak in a congregate care facility, whether it's a nursing home or a group home of some kind or rehab facility. So they're placing the bucks where they really need to go. So it's good news.
The next item is a request from Planning and Development to provide an update on the Transportation Master Plan, and Matthew Todd is on the telephone to give this update. Matthew?
Matthew, you're up.
Yes, good evening. Hope everybody can hear me all right.
Yes, sir, we're good.
As you probably have heard, we were awarded the grant from CRTPO officially here in the last couple of weeks. We'd applied for it at the end of last year. And at this point, we're moving forward. We've engaged with the local staff from the local jurisdictions to draft up our scope along with the Lake Norman Transportation Commission. And we've got a scope that's in your packet. And it includes things such as reviewing the existing adopted plans, focus on connections of those plans in the county with Mooresville, Statesville, Troutman, and Davidson as well. The plan needs to have some robust public engagement, guidelines, and also to be able to use the stuff that comes out of it moving forward. Hopefully we'll have some strategic recommendations that come out of the plan. Identifying critical needs and improvements in general, but specifically with intersections, focusing on development nodes throughout the county, school locations, industrial access areas, specifically focusing on freight mobility. Our next step basically is we've got to finish the draft for the letter of interest that will send off the DOT for their approval before we put it out to see what kind of consultant will send in submittals. And then we'll have a group made up of staff from the local municipalities and our staff to review the proposals and rank them, and then hopefully have a consultant picked to start as soon after July 1st as we can.
Are there any questions for Mr. Todd?
I'll just say that Jennifer Stafford at CRTPO did a pretty good job of defining what the purpose would be. And let's just hope that people haven't read what our budget is, and that's where their proposals come in at. If it's less, then we do get to pay less. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm okay with consent on this.
Mr. Bowles, Mr. Norman, you're good with consent?
Yes, this is Tommy. I'm good with consent. That $30,000, which is our matching part, when will we have to pay that?
That'll be in next year's budget.
We have included it in the budget amendment.
We've included it in the budget for next year.
Okay, it's in next year's budget request, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm good. I'm going to follow Ken's lead on this.
Okay. Mr. Norman, you good?
Good.
Thank you.
All right. Consent?
Yes.
Consent.
Consent. All right.
Thank you. The next item is from the Finance Department, and it's a request for approval of an amended project ordinance for Mitchell Community College Health Sciences Building. And Gerald Hyde is on the phone to make this request. Mr. Hyde?
Mr. Hyde?
Mr. Hyde, you here? Mr. Hyde, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, if you would, go ahead. You're on the mic.
All right, thank you. What we would like to do is respectively ask for your approval to transfer funds in the amount of $80,350 from the contingency of the health science project and move those to pay architect fees. And those architect fees were for the increasing of scope of the work and for additional contract administration of the project.
Any questions for Mr. Hyde? When is the dedication, the ribbon cutting going to be?
Excuse me?
When is the dedication and ribbon cutting going to be?
Hopefully by August.
Okay, for a new group of students. All right. Consent?
Consent?
Consent.
Mr. Norman, you good for consent?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde.
Thank you.
The next item is a request from the library for approval of a 2-year agreement with Overdrive Incorporated to continue providing online access and checkout of ebooks. This is a current contract that we have, and it is actually, this is great news, it has actually gone down in cost. It was a 4-year contract for $6,000, or actually for $9,000 a year, and now it's proposed to go to a 2-year contract for $6,000 per year. So there are some savings with that, and in here is an auto renew. However, either party can give a 90-day, if I remember correctly, either party can give 90-day prior to the expiration of the current term. So if the board chooses not to have this auto renew, we can give them a 90-day notice to terminate the contract. In conjunction with this, there are some additional services at no cost that they are providing, and the cost of tech support typically mirrors the contract fees, which made the service cost prohibitive in the past, but we're going to be able to take advantage of that as well. And a new service, which is Insta Digital Card, which allows patrons that do not have a library card to continue to receive digital content. So even if they don't have a library card, they can use our content on our ebooks that we have remotely and online.
Okay, any questions or comments?
This is the way it's done in the future. Yep.
Yes, sir, it is. And the good news is we're saving some money from what we originally had budgeted.
Yep.
So that's good.
Consent.
Okay, consent?
Consent?
All right, give me just a second.
Okay.
Consent, Mr. Norman and Mr. Bowles?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is a request from Human Resources to call for a public hearing on May the 5th, 2020 in regard to revisions to the Iredell County Personnel Ordinance. If the board remembers that we reviewed all of these recommended changes at the fall retreat and then again at the winter retreat and have got those to a level that we feel comfortable. So now we need to do a call for a public hearing in order to amend the ordinance. And this will just be a call for that public hearing and schedule it May the 5th.
All right, any questions?
I had let's see, under section 7, suspensions, that was in the second part.
Second section.
Yeah, it says suspensions. And this was one where I know it was modified, then we revised the modification and stuff, and I think that the way it's all worded now, I think it meets with intent, because it's, and I don't even want to get into, well, this is 4 and that's 5 and this is subsection 2. We could all end up kind of in a tizzy, but if I understand it right, under section 7B, which is non-disciplinary investigatory suspension with pay, that the new section 3, that verbiage kind of takes care of everything that we were concerned about that we had modified in section A. Is that a kind of a correct statement? We don't have to go through and read it. I just want to make sure that that one paragraph meets with the intent that you had.
Correct.
Okay. And then that first word under section 7B, in the new number 3, it has the, it says but it left the ing. I assume the whole word during is excluded. And it should just read the investigation, hearing, or trial.
Which
I
section?
would imagine during stays, does it not?
I'm not seeing that one. Can you direct me to
One
that?
dash.
No, it's not 1-3. It's
1.3 or 3. Yeah. This is
Do you want me to come and show you? Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, it should be Deering.
Okay. So
That should not have been stricken.
Okay. All right. Good. And I think that was probably the one of the tougher sections. So if all I got to do is question one word, we did good. I say we, y'all.
Oh, it was a collective effort. It's definitely a we.
All right. No, I'm good.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Bowles, Mr. Norman, any comments on the personnel part ordinance? Calling for a public hearing next meeting on the 5th.
No problem. Good.
And just for clarification, that would be at 7 p.m.
7 p.m. on the 5th.
All right. Consent?
Consent.
Consent?
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
I think we have unanimous consent.
Okay, the next item is a request from Tax Administration for denial of taxpayer request for release of property taxes which do not meet the statutory requirements. And I'm going to let our Deputy County Manager, Susan Robertson, present this item.
Thank you. There are certain reasons why the assessor can or recommends the denial of a request for a refund, and this particular one does not meet the statutory requirements because it is not a tax imposed through clerical error. It's not an illegal tax, and it wasn't levied for illegal purpose. This particular piece of property was a double-wide mobile home owned by taxpayers, and it was placed on a leased lot. They filed for bankruptcy. They surrendered the mobile home, but the title did not transfer. It remained in their name, so therefore they've been taxed on it, and there's no reason that no legal reason that it can be waived or refunded or released.
Actually, the only legal way you can get it out of their name is for the county to foreclose or to repossess and sell the property. So if you'll pass that on to the tax office.
Okay.
They clearly don't want it in their name, and they don't want to pay the taxes on it either, so they forfeit.
Yeah. We couldn't forgive them for it if we wanted to, right?
No.
No.
So even though it appears that we vote on it, there's really no options on how to vote on this. But I understand their frustration is they thought it was being taken out of their name. It wasn't, and nobody told them. So I get now the fact that it went on for this long, at some point you have some responsibility to scream or run the red flag up. But I can understand why they would be frustrated when they finished their legal agreement. They thought they were done.
The other option is the landowner could assert a storage lien on the property and get it out and have it placed in their name. So
I think the whole reason they didn't take it in their name is they didn't want it.
no, the landowner because this is a leased lot.
Right.
So at the end of the day, somebody owns it until it's taken down to one of our waste facilities. And so somebody has to pay the taxes on it. Unfortunately, it's been in their name, but there's a way to get it out. Let's move on. Okay, any further comments or questions? Consent?
Yes.
Consent.
Thank you. To deny the request.
Consent to deny the request.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
The next item is a request from Tax Administration for approval of the March refunds and releases, and there are no commissioner names on this list.
You dodged the bullet again, Tommy.
I sure did.
Okay. Is there consent?
Consent.
Consent.
And finally, the last item is a request from the clerk to the board for approval of minutes from the meeting on April the 7th, 2020.
I did submit to the clerk a few just little minor revisions to my comments, and we'll be good. So, Mr. Norman, you normally well, no, he does the adjourn. Since I made the corrections, I will say, how about if we will accept the minutes as amended? Okay.
All right. All consent?
Consent.
All right. At this time, I'll ask if there is a motion to formally approve all of the items on our consent agenda as we have discussed them.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as discussed.
Motion by Commissioner Haupt. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those like sign? Motion carries. We got all the ayes. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Jones. We now proceed to resume with the calendar. There are no announcements of any vacancies occurring on boards or commissions this evening. There are no appointments to boards and commissions. Is there any unfinished business? Hearing none, it is a public comment period, second meeting of the month. In the interest of accommodating any call-ins, I would ask that we consider a motion to suspend our normal rule and to reduce the 5-minute comment period to 3 and to limit it to 30 minutes. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Robertson. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those like sign?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, at this time, I will open the public comment period. Or before I open it, I will mention that there is a telephone number that you can call, 878-3051. So we will go ahead and open the public comment period and hold it for a minute.
I do have a call.
Okay.
Iredell County? Okay, hold on just one moment, okay? If you'll state your name and address as you begin to speak, okay? Ma'am? Ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. You can go ahead.
It is Katie Crane, 115 South Haven Drive, Mooresville.
How are you doing? Good to have you with us this evening.
Sorry, am I on?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay. I was hoping that you guys could talk a little bit about how Iredell County is staffed from a PPE perspective. We keep hearing at the national level there's a lot of shortages, and even at the North Carolina level. So how are we prepared as a county? Yes.
Well, okay, that's a good question, and I'll let our county manager discuss the PPE stocks that we started out with and how those have been distributed not only among the county first responders and public health, but also to our volunteer fire departments and rescue squads.
Thank you. Yes, PPE, of course, is a critical asset as we're dealing with COVID-19. We have actually done fairly well with our supply of PPE. Our masks, we found an additional supply of masks that were residual from the Ebola issues that we dealt with before, and we redistributed those supplies and actually took 2 boxes per rescue entity, per volunteer fire department. I think there were 38 different agencies that we took each one of those agencies 2 boxes of those masks. So we do have a supply of those masks. We have looked for other resources because gowns seem to be in scarce supply. So we have gotten creative. We have done a lot of research. I'll give a lot of credit to our EMS staff led by our director, Blair Ritchie. And they have found gowns, and they have ordered gowns and received those gowns that are washable. And that is something that is critical. They can wash those gowns up to 100 times before they lose their effectiveness. There's a fiber that helps to keep it from absorbing moisture and things of those nature. They can wash them for up to 100 times, and then after that, they dispose of them. They do have a washer and dryer at the public safety center, so they're able to launder those gowns. So we have been very fortunate in the fact that our staff has been incredibly proactive, and they have been on the cutting edge with any resources that are available and options. So we're taking advantage of those. Ms. Ritchie was also talking about our paramedics and how creative they're getting with their masks, because the CDC has given new guidance depending on the type of mask, the number of uses, things of that nature. If there has not been any exposure, the number of times they can be reused, and they are certainly exercising all of the guidance from the CDC and taking advantage of that. So we have done well with PPE. We're trying to help other agencies regarding their resources. We have received a shipment from the national stockpile. However, it did not fulfill all of Iredell County's request, but we did get a portion of that shipment from the national stockpile. And our nurses and our health department, they of course are critical for their PPE. We have taken some additional steps to try to limit the times that they're in front of those COVID positive patients regarding paperwork shuffling back and forth and things of that nature. So we've taken a lot of proactive steps to try to limit exposure and make sure that we can extend the life of our PPE in a safe way. And we've looked at additional resources for doing that. So I'm incredibly proud of our staff. They look and research thoroughly and make sure that they are taking advantage of every resource and option available. And they also planned ahead. I was speaking to Bert Conley, with the jail and the sheriff's department, and he was saying that he kind of had a feeling that they may have some supply shortages, and so he went ahead and advised his staff to stock up, and they certainly did that. And thank goodness, I told him his crystal ball was incredibly accurate. I needed it because it was budget time. But so they've done a great job with PPE, and Iredell County stands in good shape. Doesn't mean, depending on how long this lasts, we do not have to restock on a regular basis, which we're doing. Thank goodness to some of our local vendors that are changing their production and making things such as hand sanitizers and things of that nature. We're hoping that more businesses and industries will recognize the need for PPE and the fact that it's going to be a prolonged need for PPE, and they will shift their productions and try to address some of those needs as well.
Yes, a particular shout out to
Thank you.
Southern Distillery has been making instead of making the drinkable alcohol, they've been making some of the disinfecting alcohol for
Hand sanitizer.
hand sanitizer. They've also, I want to mention that our Kent Green, through our emergency management folks, distributed 2,000 masks to our Department of Social Services, which a number of DSSs out there have no protection. And so they didn't have it for a while, but we got it to them when we found out that that was a need.
And I will say that that's possible through the donation of some local businesses and citizens in Iredell County. They have been donating masks, they have been donating gloves, they have been donating hand sanitizer, Mad Vapes. They actually donated a good amount of PPE that we're actually able to redistribute. So anybody that has things like that they're not using, if you'll contact our emergency management department, and we can redistribute those to those first responders that need those. And DSS is definitely one of those first responders as well, because they're having to go out and deal with those cases as well.
Now, I'm not sure how long our stocks at the local hospitals necessarily will last. They reduced elective surgeries to none, and at some point in time, those will have to resume so that people can have other medical conditions addressed besides COVID. But everyone has either rationed out the supplies that they had and have not run out, or they've secured additional supplies and are moving forward. So thank you for your question. I think it was good to be able to share. Is there anyone else?
I had a caller earlier in the meeting, and he said he may call back. He's not called back yet.
Okay, but the line is clear.
Yes.
We'll wait for another 20 seconds or so. Hearing no one additional to comment, I will close the public comment period. Move on to new business. There are two items I would like to share with the other commissioners. One is there's been some discussion about the governor modifying his stay-at-home order that was issued in Executive Order 121. Together with perhaps other amendments to other executive orders that covered other topics, such as limiting certain professions from being able to conduct their business, like barbers and beauticians and manicurists who come in close contact necessarily with their clients and customers. I was asking for the sense of the commissioners. I'd like to be able to send a letter to the governor as well as our representatives encouraging him to go ahead and turn over to the counties the ability to make the decisions concerning stay-at-home orders and any of the other more specific restrictions that he had in other orders. If he can evaluate those from a statewide perspective, I think we can move from the sort of meat cleaver approach, one size fits all, to a more discrete scalpel-like approach based on conditions. And the conditions in Iredell County, I believe, are better than many of the other counties in the Charlotte metro region. And you know, the whole point of a lot of these was to slow the spread, not to stop the spread, but to slow the spread so that our healthcare systems would not be overwhelmed. And we need to keep our eye on the ball. We don't want to pull the trigger too soon and lose ground that we have very painfully gained. But on the other hand, we need to be able to move forward to achieve both goals, and not only protecting lives, but restoring livelihoods. And we shouldn't be forced into a prolonged Hobbesian choice between the two. But I would caution everyone that our success in that regard depends on everyone continuing to practice personal responsibility in terms of social distancing, to maintain that 6 feet distance. When you go into stores, wear a mask because you're protecting other people. and wash your hands frequently. Keep the work surfaces or surfaces you come in contact with frequently disinfected. And and certainly if you're feeling any of the symptoms of COVID-19 infection, that you stay at home yourself and that you advise folks that you come in close contact with. And so as we get more testing capability online, then we'll be able to react quickly and have results quickly, be able to address individuals that have become infected and do close contact or contact tracing to limit the spread so that we don't have to rinse and repeat this cycle. I would ask other commissioners if they have any comments, and generally if they will simply, by their assent, allow me to proceed on behalf of the county commission and to request the governor to give us more authority to make these choices.
Any comments, Marvin and Tommy?
I have no comment.
I agree with James on that. We have to do a calculated approach, and it needs to be local, I believe. We've got to do this cautiously, but we need to get on with it.
Yeah, I'll support the motion. Is this appropriate time to make a few comments just about us?
Sure.
Go on. I don't think there's any dissenting opinions on the board, on this Board of Commissioners, that we want not only Iredell County, but we want the whole nation to get back to work and get opened up as quickly as possible. And that's where the rub is. Identifying a problem kind of unites everybody. When you start identifying solutions, that's when everybody starts breaking up again. The fact of the matter is, we cannot put 300 million people on welfare until they find a vaccine. I mean, that's just not going to happen. One of the things that makes this difficult is, and I'll speak this. I have a chemical engineering degree. It's a science degree, and as a scientist, we deal with physics and we deal with biology. And physics is something that is very defined and finite. If you take 10 people and hand them a block that weighs 5 pounds, and you have a calibrated scale, all 10 people can weigh that block, and all 10 people will weigh it, and it will weigh 5 pounds every single time. So when you have to make decisions based on the weight of a block, it's fairly easy because it's repeatable, it's predictable. You collect a little bit of data and you know exactly where you are. You know exactly what you're dealing with. Biology isn't that way. If you take 10 people and they're sick and they've got a fever, you can give them all the exact same dose of the exact same medicine, and all 10 of them will have a different result. That makes it slower to figure out what's going on. It's harder to predict what's going to happen. And that's what the decision makers, and I'm empathetic. We're a Republican board. I have empathy for the president and his team. I have empathy for the governor and his team. Everybody's trying to predict something that is not physics. It's biology. It's not as predictable. And we're in a bit of a tough spot. Here's what we're hoping for. Right now, I've heard mixed results on will warm weather diminish the ability of this virus to either be spread or to mutate, and the severity isn't as much. And I've heard some reports that say that it is susceptible to warmer weather, and I've heard others that say that it seems to be unresponsive to warmer weather. We still don't know. But if they find out that, warm weather is going to make this go away, I think we go from red to yellow to green pretty doggone fast. But until they do that, then I think you're going to see the federal government proceed cautiously. I think you'll see the state government proceed cautiously. I think you'll see Iredell County proceed cautiously. That doesn't mean that we're going to do it slowly. But we're going to, this is a fluid situation. The data changes every day, and we'll make the decision based upon the data. Right now, our county has survived this thing pretty well. We seem to be pretty prepared for stuff. So we'll make the decisions based upon that data. I'd like to oversimplify something if I could just for a moment, and then I'll shut up on the topic. The order that the governor gave was very broad in defining what's an essential business. In essence, every business other than restaurants, barbershops, beauty shops, tattoo parlors, houses of dubious distinction, all of those businesses, those were the only businesses that were told that they had to close. Everybody else, if you deemed yourself essential, you could. And a lot of places did. So really, when we're talking about what is Iredell County going to lift, it boils down to probably beauty shops, barber shops, and sit-down restaurants. Most other businesses that could be open or operating, they're doing it anyway. So I don't think we ought to make the decision, make it sound like it's more monumental than it is. The biggest thing is going to be, are they going to continue the distancing? Are they going to continue to act in a cautious way? So I want us to get open, and like I said during our last meeting, when we do get open, we got to spend our money local. Let's get our local businesses back up. Federal government's not going to come in and fix Iredell County. The state's not going to do it. Iredell County is going to do just what Ms. Jones, when she talked about the redistribution of some of the PPE that people donated, and we got it in the right hands in the right ways. Iredell County, if we look after our citizens, when some of these restrictions are lifted, we'll come out and we'll be just fine. So those are my comments, and I support you writing a letter to the governor asking him for that he allow us some leeway here.
Additional comments?
I just want to make some comments that, on a national level, our goals originally on a national level were to, ask everyone to social distance themselves. And that was to prevent medical facilities and hospitals from being overrun. And I think it was to flatten the curve or slow the spread of the virus. I think nationally we've accomplished that. I think at this point, as the saying goes, government is best the closest to the people. So I think now what we're going to ask the governor to do in Washington is allow us to trickle up information of how they can help us on a local level. Because a lot of the national data has been based on metropolitan areas that have high populations and density, which are very difficult for social distancing. So every county and every state are different. And I think if we all work together to feed that information up instead of down now, I think we can accomplish some good things. I want to also say that I want to thank our county manager, our administrative team, our county staff, and our health department officials. All of these people have worked tirelessly, unlimited hours and dedications away from their families and above and beyond the duty because they care about our county and our country. And so, as our General Government Task Force lead, I want to say we're proud of you guys and we're proud to have our staff. I also want to thank the citizens because the patience that our citizens have showed and ask them to continue with grace, because we are going to unintentionally impact people negatively. To all of your points before me, we're going to ask people to continue with personal responsibility, social distancing, the businesses and situations that can slowly and cautiously start reopening at whatever point, if schools are allowed to be in. You know, we all have to work together, whether you're Republican or Democrat, we're Americans. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. I want to say thank you for the videos staff and James and Tommy have done. I want to ask people to continue looking for updates on a regular basis on our website. Our staff is making sure it is continuously updated to give them the latest factual information. If you want factual information, get it from your local people that impacts you the most here locally. And I just want to say, Commissioner Bowles asked Manager Robertson to get information out today, our latest update of 93 positive cases in Iredell County, 3 deaths related to COVID-19. We continue to trickle this information out. Thank you for your patience. We're doing the best we can for you. Are we going to make mistakes? Yes. But we're trying to cautiously and methodically navigate through this on your behalf. So ideas, continue to feed that to us. But we appreciate your grace and patience and forgiveness to our staff. I want to thank all the emergency responders, our healthcare workers, the families for these people, that some of which come home and have to social distance themselves to protect their families. People that have lost loved ones because they can't visit them in the hospitals. We're Americans, guys. We have to pray for each other, forgive each other, and navigate through this together. We can do it. But I support your resolution, and I think hopefully the governor will allow us to trickle information up using hard facts from each county. And because we've got different areas of our own county that actually have to, with personal responsibility and social distancing, function differently because of our population diversity. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there we'll go ahead and then, is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion on behalf of the commissioners to allow the chairman to do a resolution on our behalf, asking the governor for authorization for local control.
A resolution or a letter?
A letter. To allow him to do that on our behalf.
Motion by Commissioner Halp. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those like sign. Motion carries. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen, for allowing me to go ahead and represent the entire board in this letter. I will tell folks that, as alluded to by Commissioner Howe, we have a large county, and it's one of the reasons we're asking for some local discretion, because we have been tracking these numbers assiduously and seeing where there's a problem or where there's not. If you go on the website, you can see the county is divided into 3 general areas: a northern area, basically north of Interstate 40, central area, and a southern area. And there are different numbers of COVID positive cases. There are 58 in 4 southern zip codes. There are 25 in the central area, and there's 10 in the northern area. So understanding that, and also understanding that there are greater population densities in all 3 of those areas. So after looking at all the numbers and doing some analysis and working very closely with our municipalities, because Iredell County has a state of emergency for the county, which includes Harmony and Love Valley. But Statesville, Troutman, and Mooresville all have their own states of emergency, which means that anything the county does that might be different from what the governor's requirements are that apply to everyone, every county, will apply only in those unincorporated areas of the county. So we will be working very closely with the municipalities to have a common approach where warranted, and a more specialized approach if that's warranted. But we will want to have, because Mooresville, for instance, is like a starfish when you look at the city boundaries that follow out along major arteries, road net. And so we don't need to have situations where there's confusion about what law applies. If you have somebody across the street from you, everybody should be on the same sheet of music. So if warranted, if the town of Mooresville chooses a more restrictive approach on something than the county, I would recommend us to follow that so that we don't have any distinction between us in that geographic area. So we will be looking, and hopefully we can all be on the same page of music regardless. But we'll be looking at that over the next several weeks, as Commissioner Robertson has noted, that when we transition from red to yellow and then green as quickly as we can and as safely as we can. So the second item that I had, I'm going to ask once again for authorization to write a letter to the Board of Elections at the state level, which is proposing some new rules relative to absentee voting. We know that that under certain circumstances, the hard and fast rules of absentee voting can be, in some degree, modified by the State Board of Elections when there is a defined natural disaster, whether it's a flood or a hurricane or fires or you name it. They would like to add to that a pandemic type situation which would qualify. That in and of itself makes some sense if you look and you say, well, we have a number of vulnerable populations that are being told they need to sequester themselves to limit their travel and their mobility. So there may be some, in terms of defining what a disaster is, that probably, fits the bill. But there's an old saying, never let a crisis go to waste. Well, it would appear that the staff at the Board of Elections at the state level wants to basically virtually gut or throw out virtually every process that we currently have with absentee votes that ensure integrity of the process. Now, just so people understand, absentee voting does not mean that you have to be absent. You can request an absentee ballot for any reason. You can just decide, I'm just going to be hanging out at home and I don't want to go out. Well, you can request an absentee ballot. There's a defined time period in which you have to do that, no later than a week prior to whatever the election is. You need to have requested that. And there's a form that lays out how you do that. And to ensure that the integrity of the voting process is maintained, there are requirements of witnesses, 2 witnesses. They have to be disinterested, or they can't be, employees of a nursing home, for instance. If someone is being helped by a legal guardian or a close relative, that person's name has to be divulged. And the ballot itself, when it's mailed and it's filled in, has to be taken into the Board of Elections or mailed by the Postal Service. So there are not unduly onerous requirements that simply maintain the integrity of the voting process. You can open up eligibility, if you will, if you need to somehow. But it seems to me, and I think the sense is among fellow commissioners, that we can do both. We can make the process as easily understood and accomplishable as possible, but still maintain integrity of the electoral process. And a lot of those protections, in my view, were being eliminated in these proposed rules. So I would just ask for sense of commissioners to approve my providing some input to the rules-making process and to our legislators, because at the end of the day, it's really up to them to write the law, encouraging them to make absentee voting as painless as possible, but maintaining strict accountability of the integrity of the process.
Becky Galler and our elections board, they have done a super job on election day. If a precinct says 1,572 people voted, you can find 1,572 paper ballots that match the vote totals. We've got a good, safe system. Any movement to go towards a Nevada or California situation where on election day somebody with New York license plates can pull into your Board of Elections with a duffel bag with 3,000 ballots. We can't have that. And when you have vote by mail or vote by internet, you're going to have fraud. So I don't support any sort of initiative to make it easier for somebody to vote unless they come down and vote. So we've got a mechanism where our military can vote absentee. We have, how many weeks of early voting? We have 2, 3. It's the biggest. It's very, very difficult to run for office when you've got to kind of be out there for 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks for a primary and for a general election. It really kind of runs people with jobs out of the election market. But if somebody wants to vote, there's plenty of ways to vote. Period. So I'm totally against anything that makes it easier. It's already easy to vote. What I'm against is make it easier to commit a fraudulent vote. So as long as your letter falls within kind of those white lines, I'm good to go. I'm not for widening or reducing any of the thresholds or mandates or regulations or hoops or whatever you want to call it to vote. I don't want to make it easier so that somebody can vote for someone else. And that's what happens when that ballot is touched by anybody except the volunteer at the ballot, at the polling place, and the voter. As soon as you make it where it's easier for somebody else to touch that ballot, you've just made it easier for there to be election fraud. And I think it's really bad for us to be a part of that. And it doesn't surprise me that at the state that they would be looking to make it easier for people to vote in a fraudulent manner. And I hate to say that, but it's true. So anyway, I vote for Becky Galler. I trust her. Okay?
I just have one request in support of the normal voting practices. I'd like for you or the clerk to forward your letter when finished. I'd like to request all elected officials and boards and mayors to do their own letter or sign on in support of our letter to the governor, where it's unanimous from all elected officials and boards in the county.
Okay. Is there a motion to authorize me to go forward?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Halp. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. Marvin?
Mr. Norman, you good?
I am.
Okay.
Thank
All right. Motion carries unanimously. County Manager's Report.
Thank you. I'll make it as brief as possible. But
Anything going on?
it's not like
Anything
you have
normal
else.
going on?
Right, exactly.
Just one quick thing. I just wanted to try to confirm our dates for the budget workshop. I know that we've sent those out, and I think everybody has responded. The dates were May the 7th, May the 11th, and tentatively, if we needed, May the 12th. Based on everything that is occurring and the numbers that we're getting and the projections we're getting regarding sales tax decreases and things of that nature, we're asking to push those out about 2 weeks so we can get as accurate numbers and projections as possible. We want to give you the most accurate that we have and that we can get. And so we would like to push it out 2 weeks. That's really the only time that we feel comfortable is pushing it out 2 weeks because we still need to get it done by July 1st. So we need to have enough time to have those workshops, go through everything with the board, still have the public hearing, and get the budget approved and adopted to begin July 1st. But we're going to push it out so we can get as accurate numbers as possible. So,
at our last meeting, I asked if we had any sort of feedback from the state, since there's that 90-day lag between when they collect it and when they give it to the counties and cities and all that stuff. Do we have any sort of information from the state on how bad it looks?
yes, and it's not pretty.
Okay.
Yes, and I will tell you some of the things that we're doing now. And I will tell you, before I go any further, we have been working on this. When this first happened, we said, okay, we're going to see a hit in our revenues. And we started pacing that back and pacing our expenditures back and looking at our revenues and going back and adjusting, saying, okay, we're not going to hit this revenue number in this department. We're not going to hit this number. We're not going to hit this number. And we started scaling that back. So I can tell you that we have already put a lot of measures in place to try to make sure that not only we finish up this fiscal year budget and we don't hit a deficit in this year, we're going to do the absolute best that we possibly can for this year, but to give you a good, solid budget for next fiscal year as well. The state is telling us that, initially they were saying, you're looking at about a 3% decrease in sales tax. And we thought, how about if we just don't project any increases in sales tax at all for next year? And we felt okay with that based on the state guidance. And then they came back and said, okay, it's going to be a decrease, and it could be anywhere from 20 to some areas 50% reduction in sales tax. So
For what period? For these months that we're in now?
Starting the next fiscal year. So because there's a lag time.
Decrease?
And what we do not feel that applies to Iredell County. We feel that applies, and that's a statewide projection. We feel that probably applies to those resort areas because they are very heavily dependent on sales tax. So we feel like that maximum decrease is that's going to be more in those resort areas. I will tell you one of the concerns that I specifically have is when those areas see a decrease in sales tax, I am concerned that the topic of conversation will come back up about sales tax redistribution. We have fought this year after year after year. I have a concern that will come back up at some point. So we need to make sure that everybody is on the same page and we are communicating with our legislators and letting them know we are not in favor of a sales tax redistribution if that occurs. They're telling us, they're giving us a heads up. We all need to tighten our belts and we need to plan accordingly, and we are certainly doing that. So we are planning for a decrease in our sales tax. We are going through our budgets and we are making them very tight. What we're also doing this year is we are limiting our spending to only necessary spending. That's a prudent thing to do, and that's certainly what we're doing. So I feel comfortable, and I hope that the board feels comfortable, and your management team and your budget team, that we are taking all the appropriate steps to make sure that we are not only meeting our budget this year, but presenting a good balanced budget for next year. But with that being said, the longer we get to get these additional projections and these numbers and see what these numbers look like coming in, the more accurate we can give you as far as a budget for the next fiscal year. So the dates that we would like to propose are Tuesday, May the 19th, 2 to 6, Thursday the 21st, from 9 to 1, and then Tuesday the 26th if needed. I think last year we got it done in 2 days. We may need 3, but those are the 3 dates that we would like to propose. I think everybody has that. Oh, Tom? 4.
26. Did you set it?
26 from 11 to 3. I'm sorry.
Those are the dates that you already sent out the invite.
Those are the dates that we sent out, and just want to confirm that and go ahead and announce that if everybody is okay with that for your schedule, so we can give appropriate notice for those.
Just 2 things on what you said about slowing down the spending. I would just say that if the spending is roof related,
we're going to continue to maintain our facilities because we learned in the last recession that when you don't maintain, it costs more
it costs
later.
way more.
So we're going to continue to do that. This is just anything that, for example, and I'm not saying this is the case, but one of the things we've already done, we stopped when this first hit, we stopped all travel and training and things of that nature. So we've already gone through all of those line items. We're taking that money and we're going to roll it to next year and not budget next year for that because we're not sure we're going to be able to do that next year or when. So we're already doing things like that, which actually cuts the request from next year. So we didn't spend the money this year. We're going to roll it forward to next year, and that'll cut the request for next year. So we're looking at things like that. We're doing things like, for example, if you were requesting a new copier, and the one you've got is okay, and you think you get another year out of it, don't get it. Let's get another year out of it. So we're hoping that mid-year our revenues will tick back up. So we're hoping this is not going to be a year-long thing, and we can go back and we very well may have to do some mid-year regroup as our revenues continue to pick back up. We'll request and see if the board is willing to come back and look at some mid-year revisions to the budget. And we've already started talking about what those mid-year revisions would be if we see an increase in revenues as hopefully we recover from this.
Like I said last meeting, if our economy is going to recover, we can't cancel. We have to postpone and delay.
Correct.
So,
And that's exactly what we're going to do. I mean, there are things there that we'd like to do. There are some new programs that some of the departments were talking about doing. We may not be able to start at July 1. We may wait and start at January 1.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We're keeping that list. So
the other thing I would say that we all need to be aware of, I don't think that what Raleigh come in and do is say, oh, we're going to divert sales tax to resort areas or whatever. What they'll do, because most counties are not resort areas, what they'll do is they'll come and they'll divert it from high wealth counties to low wealth counties. There's 100 counties in the state. 18 of them are considered 18 or 19 are considered high wealth, and 81 are considered low wealth. And what they'll do is they'll vote to change the formula so that the high wealth counties get less, the low wealth counties get more, and we're one of the high wealth counties. So when you have 81 people on one side and 19 people on the other, that's like having 6 wolves and a sheep voting on what's for supper. And that's one where we can lose. So, but you're right. And this is exactly the premise that they'll try it under.
And we have that concern. So I say that to say that we are being very vigilant with that. We're keeping our ear to the ground, and if there's any rumblings, we will certainly alert you and our legislators, because that is definitely not something that would benefit Iredell County at all.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Anything further?
No, sir.
Okay. We do have a closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11 subsection A4 relative to economic development. So at this time, I will close the open session. We will go into closed session and go ahead and secure the doors.
Are we going to go in the room, or are we going to do it in
Stay
here?
right out here. We can be right out here. Just make sure the mic isn't on this time. Yes.
We're live, gentlemen.
Okay. Resume open session. There is nothing to report out publicly on the closed session agenda item for economic development. Is there anything more to come before the commission? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Norman, I'd like to ask you to make a motion to adjourn, sir.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Norman. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned.
Adjourn.
Good job, Mark.